Hello, I'm your host, Tony Felice, and what you're about to hear is the continuation of a story that began in memory and grief and now opens into something entirely new. In Season 1, we follow Tom Sanders, a writer suspended in sorrow, struggling to finish a book after the death of his mother. Through the hush of loss and unexpected guidance of a wise, mysterious cricket, something began to unfold. A story within a story. A Christmas tale, unlike any other. Now, in Season 2, we cross the threshold with Tom. We enter Santa Land itself. This is a fairy tale for grown-ups. A journey through snow and stillness, through magic and meaning, through the sacred language of the words we speak and the love we feel. So follow the cricket. Let your heart be still and listen, because Santa Land isn't just a story, it's a frequency. And love is the thread. And I am so glad that you're here. Welcome to Santa Land. Hello, and welcome back to the Santa Land podcast. I'm Tony Felice, and thank you for joining me again as I take a drink on the Santa Land podcast. And I'm leaving that in because I wanted you guys to know that when I'm reading this, I'm reading it all the way through, and I'm not stopping unless I really screw up, and then I have to fix usually just a little thing. But for the most part, I'm reading it straight through. And I have to tell you, the copy that I'm reading, there are no quotation marks for characters speaking, so I have to literally scan it, the whole paragraph, really quickly, and kind of pull out where the quotations happen. So bear with me if I fudge a little of that up. They used to call me One Take Tony at this one place where I worked, and I did a TV show for a local network, and they'd be like, "How in the world can you do that?" And I don't know. I think it comes from my mom. She can speed read, and I'm also dyslexic. And when I write, I always put the Y before the N or the E before the R, and I've screwed up people's names on it. I can't tell you how many labels I've readdressed in my life. Makes studying hard, but how I adapted was I take a snapshot with my eye of the whole page, and then I only look at the first sentence of each paragraph, and that kind of tells you the whole gist of what the page is going to talk about generally, and then you can then see the important stuff just sort of jumps off the page, and you look at that, and as you're doing that, you're sort of reading. And I don't know if everybody else can do that. You can send me an email I'd love to hear from you how you can speed read, but it's how I was able to get through school and work a 50-hour-a-week job at the time, trying to finish school, get those last credits in. Anyway, I don't want to burn all my time up here about that. I do want to ask you, sincerely, did you see any ghosts? Have any Christmas ghosts appeared to you? And I'd like to know. So shoot me an email, put a comment. I did see a ghost, and I did think I was having too much of a jolly time because it was Christmas Eve. And I was looking for Tim. I couldn't find him. And the house is so cozy. The fire's going, the Christmas lights. On one bookshelf, we have Ralphie's whole universe, his house, and the Chop Suey Palace. And the school. I mean, we have the whole thing as that people have given us as gifts. And then on the other one, we have Peanuts on that other bookshelf. So we have the whole Peanuts gang and their houses and the school, and them standing around the fake trees. And then we have, we pretty much keep our vibe the same. We have, it's like so if you were to go into a ship's captain's quarters, that's what it looks like. So think leather chairs, whale illustrations, brass, black furniture. You can get the idea. But super cozy. And anyway, I walked past the Christmas tree, full of Christmas cheer, and to step out onto the balcony to see if Tim was out there. And he was not, but somebody else was. And I saw a light of a figure sitting in a chair, and because I was looking for Tim, I may have assigned Tim's features to it, but then they dissolved. And it was like seeing, when they beam up, when Scotty gets beamed up, when they show that on the Enterprise, that the sort of bars of light. That's what I'll say, bars of light. Almost like a wave pattern, but anyway, it was a figure, and it was golden, and it was, but it was transparent, and I could see, the balcony and the bay behind. It was just sitting there in a chair, and first of all, I was startled, and I thought, okay, I'm imagining this. This is not real. You shake your head. You say, oh, okay, well, I had maybe too much wine or whatever, and I didn't really see that, but I did, and but I didn't freak out, and I was just like, hey, how you doing? So I just said, if you're not good, then hit the bricks, but if you're of light and love, then hang around and tell me what you have to tell me. And so this is a long way, 5 minutes of me getting to the point. And the point is that much like Marley, I remember, if you remember when I was reading that section, I think there's a plane going over, I'm sorry. When I'm reading that section and he asks him if he can sit in a chair, if you don't have the benefit of reading the text, so you just have to get it from my voice, and I hope you can get it. But the reason why Scrooge asked him if he could sit in a chair was because if he couldn't, it would embarrass him, he thought. So even in his fright, he was a scoundrel, right? And so Marley sits in the chair and says, dude, get your life together. Otherwise, here's what I have to do. I have to spend eternity roasting and carrying around all these chains, and I see all the people that need help on earth, and I can't help them, can't touch them. I might be able to visit them, but I cannot interfere, and that's my penance, because of all the times I had a chance to help somebody else out, and you know what those times are. I'm not going to call them out, but it's Christmas time, and this is about the generosity of spirit that lasts beyond Christmas. Don't you think? Boy, I wish it was year round. I have a new phrase we're using around the house. Happy doesn't suck. I'm going to get that into the sequel. I may even have the cricket say it as English vernacular, that happy doesn't suck. It never sucks. Ever. And when you feel something creeping in that says all the reasons why it should suck, you got a choice. That's your choice to say, no, it doesn't, man. And even if it does, I'm supposed to be here to not just serve myself, but to help other people, right? And isn't that fun? Isn't that fun when everyone gets along? Oh my God, I love to see acts of kindness like Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, and how they are just carrying themselves on through this press tour, and the young boys from Heated Rivalry, and how successful they are, overnight stars from, unknown actors to overnight successes. And they're just conducting themselves with such grace and kindness for other people. And it's unusual to see that. And I'm not into celebrity adoration, but what I am into are acts of kindness that are witnessed by millions. Because I'm into things that are effective. So that's what Scrooge and I have in common. I like things to be effective. I like them to be true. But where we differ is that the vibe has to be right. And if the vibe isn't right, the money's not worth it. Because the money always steals when you don't treat it with respect. That's the secret, I think. If you take care of it and you love, but it's not your, geez, people are going to take this the wrong way. I'm not saying to love money. I'm just saying if it's just one of the tools that you have in your arsenal, wouldn't you want to keep it sharp and shiny? Look after it, make sure it's fed and feels warm and loved, just like all your children. I do that for grace and integrity and for ethics and for kindness and compassion. And, sometimes doing the right thing is just like not saying a word, even though you're right. Don't recline your chair just because you can. But these are the things that Scrooge has lost sight of, and we're going to find out why here, because he's about to talk to, he's still in the past, but he's going to be touched in the present. And that's why, getting to my point, that I was absent last night, because I believe that spirit said to me, Tony, slow down, sit down and enjoy the light, because the light is being present. And I had it going for me, because as I was walking out to the balcony, I was appreciating and so grateful for all of our abundance and everything, the twinkling lights and the fireplace. It's like, it really looks like it was like Santa's house, if Santa was a sea captain kind of thing. So I was present, and I enjoyed being with Tim. And instead of putting on the TV, we put on Christmas music and we talked. We had charcuterie board and we sat outside and we related to each other and we asked each other deep questions, because this was the first time in, I think, 21 years that we were by ourselves for Christmas. And we took advantage of it. It was great. We had reconnected, had such a great time. Obi, of course, is a handful, let me tell you. He is a handful, but we do love him. So my point, again, is that Scrooge seems to be experiencing what I'm experiencing, which is kind of weird. And I'm 100% telling you guys, this is the way it happens. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this book again. And I have a lot of characters to do, so bear with me. I'll try to do my best. Stand by. Spit it, said Scrooge. Show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me? One shadow more, exclaimed the ghost. No more, cried Scrooge. No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room, not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children than Scrooge, in his agitated state of mind, could count. And unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sport, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly.
What would I not have given to be one of them, though I never could have been so rude? No, I wouldn't, for all the wealth in the world, have crushed that braided hair and torn it down, and for the precious little shoe, I wouldn't have plucked it off. God bless my soul to save my life. As to measuring her waist in sport as they did, bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for punishment, and never come straight again. And yet I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes, and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I would have liked, I do confess, to have all the license of a child, and yet to have been a man enough to know its value. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with laughing face and plundering dress, was borne towards it in the centre of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting, and the struggling, and the onslaught that was made on the defenceless porter, the scaling him with chairs for ladders to dive into his pockets, despoil him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him round his neck, pummel his back, and kick his legs in irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received, the terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey, glued on a wooden platter, the immense relief of finding this a false alarm, the joy and the gratitude and the ecstasy, they are all indescribable alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlor, and one by one stair at a time, up to the very top of the house, they were sent where they went to bed, and so subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful and as full of promise, might have called him father, and had been springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. "Belle," said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon."
"Who was it?"
"Guess."
"How can I? Tut, I don't know," she added in the same breath, laughing as he laughed. Mr. Scrooge? Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a little candle inside, I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe.
"Spirit," said Scrooge in a broken voice, "remove me from this place."
"I told you these were the shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost, "that they are what they are. Do not blame me."
"Remove me!" Scrooge exclaimed. "I cannot bear it."
He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face, in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, he wrestled with it.
"Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer!"
In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connecting that with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap, and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form. But though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light, which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness,
and further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Stave 3. The second of the three spirits. Awakening, in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time, for the especial purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatching him through Jacob Marley's intervention. But finding that he turned uncomfortably cold when he began to wonder which of his curtains this new spectre would draw back, he put them every one aside with his own hands, and, lying down again, established a sharp lookout all round the bed, for he wished to challenge the spirit on the moment of its appearance, and did not wish to be taken by surprise and made nervous. Gentlemen of the free and easy sort, who plume themselves on being acquainted with a move or two, and being usually equal to the time of day, express the wide range of their capacity for adventure by observing that they are good for anything from pitch and toss to manslaughter, between which opposite extremes, no doubt, there lies a tolerably wide and comprehensive range of subjects. Without venturing for Scrooge quite as hardly as this, I don't mind calling on you to believe that he was ready for a good broad field of strange appearances, and that nothing between a baby and a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing, and consequently, when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came. All this time he lay upon his bed, the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light, which streamed upon it when the clock proclaimed the hour, and which, being only light, was more alarming than a dozen ghosts, as he was powerless to make out what it meant, or would be at, and was sometimes apprehensive that he might be at that very moment an interesting case of spontaneous combustion, without having the consolation of knowing it. At last, however, he began to think. As you or I would have thought at first, for it is always the person not in the predicament who knows what ought to have been done in it, and would have unquestionably have done it too. At last, I say, he began to think that the source and secret of this ghostly light may be in the adjoining room, from whence, on further tracing it, it seemed to shine. This idea taking full possession of his mind, he got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. It was his own room. There was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, as if so many little mirrors had been scattered there. And such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as that dull petrification of a hearth had never known in Scrooge's time, or Marley's, or for many, many a winter season gone. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne, were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12th cakes, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In an easy state upon the couch there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch, in a shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and he held it up high to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door. "Come in!" exclaimed the ghost. "Come in! And know me better, man!" Scrooge entered timidly and hung his head before the spirit. He was not the dogged Scrooge he had been, and though the spirit's eyes were clear and kind, he did not like to meet them. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," said the spirit. "Look upon me." Scrooge reverently did so. It was clothed in one simple deep green robe or mantle, bordered with white fur. This garment hung so loosely on the figure that its capacious breast was bare, as if disdaining to be warded or concealed by any artifice. Its feet observable beneath the ample folds of the garment, and on its head it wore no other covering than a holly wreath. It sat there, and there, with shining icicles. Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand, its cheery voice, its unconstrained demeanor, and its joyful air. Girdled round its middle was an antique scabbard, but no sword was in it, and the ancient sheath was eaten up with rust. "You have never seen the likes of me before," exclaimed the spirit. "Never," said Scrooge, made to answer it. "Have never walked forth with the younger members of my family, meaning, for I am very young, my elder brothers born in these later years," pursued the phantom. "I don't think that I have," said Scrooge. "I'm afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, spirit?" "More than 1,800, said the ghost. A tremendous family to provide for," muttered Scrooge. The ghost of Christmas present rose. "Spirit," said Scrooge submissively, "conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learned a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it." "Touch my robe." Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. Holly, mistletoe, red berries, ivy, turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, meat, pigs, sausages, oysters, pies, puddings, fruit, punch, all vanished instantly. So did the room on the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of the night, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning, where, for the weather was severe, the people made a rough but brisk and not unpleasant kind of music in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings, and from the tops of their houses, whence it was mad delight to the boys to see it come plummeting down into the road below, and splitting into artificial little snowstorms. The house fronts looked black enough, and the windows blacker, contrasting with the smooth white sheet of snow upon the roofs, and with the dirtier snow upon the ground, which last deposit had been ploughed up in deep furrows by the heavy wheels of carts and wagons. Furrows that crossed and recrossed each other hundreds of times, where the great streets branched off and made intricate channels hard to trace in the thick yellow mud and icy water. The sky was gloomy, and the shorter streets were choked up with a dingy mist, half thawed, half frozen, whose heavier particles descended in a shower of sooty atoms, as if all the chimneys in Great Britain had, by one consent, caught fire, and were blazing away to their dear hearts' content. There was nothing very cheerful in the climate or the town, and yet there was an air of cheerfulness abroad that the clearest summer air and brightest summer sun might have endeavored to diffuse in vain. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops were jovial and full of glee, calling out to one another from the parapets, and now and then exchanging a facetious snowball, better-nurtured missile. Good Lord, this is wordy. I've got to go back. I left this in to see if you're paying attention. I'm going to start again. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops. Again. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops were... Again. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops, they were jovial and full of glee. They called out to one another from the parapets, and now and then exchanged a facetious snowball, a better-natured missile, far than many a wordy jest, laughing heartily if it went right, and not less heartily if it went wrong. Can you imagine saying that? Let's try this again. For the people who I know what he's trying to say. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops, they were jovial and full of glee, calling out to one another from the parapets, and now and then exchanging a facetious snowball, a better-natured missile than far many a wordy jest, laughing heartily if it went right, and not less heartily if it went wrong. The poulterers' shops were still half open, and the fruiterers were radiant in their glory. There were great, round, pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts, shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen, lolling at the doors and tumbling out into the street in their apoplectic opulence. There were ruddy brown-faced, broad-girthed Spanish onions, shining in the fatness of their growth like Spanish friars, and winking from their shelves in wanton shyness at the girls as they went by, and glanced demurely at the hung-up mistletoe. There were pears and apples clustered high in blooming pyramids. There were bunches of grapes, made in the shopkeeper's benevolence to dangle from copious hooks, that people's mouths might water gratis as they passed. There were piles of filberts, mossy and brown, recalling in their fragrance ancient walks among the woods and pleasant shufflings ankle-deep through withered leaves. There were Norfolk biffins, squab and swarthy, setting off the yellow of the oranges and lemons, and in the great compactness of their juicy persons, urgently entreating and beseeching to be carried home in paper bags and eaten after dinner. The very gold and silver fish set forth among these choice fruits in a bowl, though members of a dull and stagnant, bloodied race, appeared to know that there was something going on, and, to a fish, went gasping round and round their little world in slow and passionate excitement. The grocers, oh, the grocers, nearly closed, with perhaps 2 shutters down or 1, but through those gaps such glimpses. It was not alone that the scales descending on the counter made a merry sound, or that the twine and roller parted company so briskly, or that canisters were rattled up and down like juggling tricks, or even that blended scents of tea and coffee were so grateful to the noise, or even that the raisins were so plentiful and rare, the almonds so extremely white, the sticks of cinnamon so long and straight, the other spices so delicious, their candied fruit so caked and spotted with molten sugar as to make the coldest lookers-on feel faint. The figs were moist and plumpy, and the French plums blushed in modest tartness from their highly decorated boxes. Or it was that everything good to eat in its Christmas dress was present. But the customers were all so hurried and so eager in their hopeful promise of the day that they tumbled upon and against each other at the door, crashing their wicker baskets wildly, and left their purchases upon the counter and came running back to fetch them, and committed hundreds of the like mistakes in the best humour possible, while the grocer and his people were so frank and fresh that the polished hearts with which they fastened their aprons behind might have been their own worn outside for general inspection, and for Christmas dolls to peck at if they chose. But soon the steeples called good people all to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes and with their gayest faces. And at the same time there emerged from sources of by-streets, lanes, and nameless turnings, innumerable people carrying their dinner to the bakers' shops. The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and, taking off the covers as their bearers passed, sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some dinner-carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humour was restored directly. For they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day, and so it was. God love it, so it was. In time, the bells ceased, and the bakers were shut up, and yet there was a genial shadow going forth on all these dinners, and the progress of their cooking. A genial shadowing forth. That is hilarious. This section is incredibly difficult, and I'm going to stop here. Is this unprofessional? No. I'm trying to the whole purpose of creating this podcast was to reveal the creative process and share a little bit of that with you. So it is the day after Christmas, and I'm about 33 minutes and 30 seconds exactly, which, if you read my book, that's significant. That's the time my mama passed this earthly realm, and it's the time she visits me. So everyone say, hello, Winnie, at the same time. All of you out there at the same time. Is everyone paying attention? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hi, Winnie. Thank you. To all of you listening, thank you so much for hanging in there. I'm pooped, and I don't want to screw it up. And I'm not sure if my voice was on perfect tonight. I think that just the pressure of the holidays is kind of releasing, but still the residual visit of that ghost. It's almost like saying, be more present today, because it stopped at 3:33. So I got to be a little bit more present with my husband and my dog and our cozy little house and our friends and neighbors that we care about, that we exchange Christmas presents with. And for all of you who celebrate the holiday, Merry Christmas to you. Happy day after Christmas to you. I'm so glad that you're here, part of my journey as an artist. So till next time, hope you guys have a great night. God bless.